Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled are director Edward Edwards and author Christie Mellor. Director, actor Edward Edwards was born and raised in Dallas, Texas. He attended Southern Methodist University and the University of Texas, and then he went on to study at Juilliard. What career path were you planning to take then?
Oh, when I went to Juilliard? Oh, I wanted to be an actor. I've always wanted to be an actor ever since I was a kid.
Oh, so that was what you were going to do. How'd you get into directing then?
Well, when I was in New York, I was part of a theater company. I was a founding member of a company called the Colonnades Theater Lab. It was an off-Broadway thing. We were right across the street from the Public Theater.
So, did you go right from Juilliard to there, or were you there?
Yeah, no, I went right there.
Okay.
And they were doing across the street at the Public. They were doing all their stuff, and they were doing. That's when they started Chorus Line, and so we watched them do his Chorus Line. We were building our little theater, and we became kind of the darling of the off-Broadway thing. And while I was there, we had gotten some grants, Ford grants and stuff like that, to work with inner city kids. And I started going into the school system and working with high school kids and directing shows for them. So I kind of started off there, and then I would do small projects at our company too. And so I was doing both, acting and directing at the same time.
So actually by founding it, or the company,
right,
you had to do everything.
Well, I wasn't the complete founder.
But I mean, but as a part of the founders,
we wanted to do something like that.
You had to sweep the floor.
Oh.
You had to do.
And that hasn't changed yet.
I know. That's what I say. Like, you're working in a small theater now,
right,
and you probably are like,
I do.
You either clean it up or it stays like that.
I'm the one that comes in.
Well, when I saw your name, Edward Edwards, I went, there's a politician by that name. Is that who's coming on the show?
Right. No, he's from the South, but it's a very Southern thing. My dad's name was Leonard, and they always...
Leonard Edwards?
Leonard Edwards, and he got teased that none of his, his friends liked that name, so they always called him Eddie. So he figured Edward Edwards. But the joke has always been that they gave me that name because I was too stupid to remember two names, but the real joke is I was too stupid to change it. So.
I like that. But I think not too stupid to get yourself on Broadway and streamers. Did that come right away?
It came. I was a member of the Colonnades at that time, and the Public Theater did streamers, and it was across the street, and I managed to get an audition.
It was at the Public Theater.
It was at the Public Theater. They did it at the Mitzi Newhouse, which was considered it's a Broadway house.
Yes.
Because it won a lot of awards that year, and so Mike Nichols directed it.
Yes.
And it had come from New Haven. They had done the original production there, and then they moved it to New York, and then I came in. And it's a very powerful show. So that was a treat.
And then you also found yourself on Broadway again in The Nerd.
In The Nerd.
Was that after?
That was later. I was actually living out here in L.A. and they did auditions out here, and I got cast to go out there and did the show there. I was the original understudy for the show. Then went on for like a month or so while he took some time off. And then they asked me to open the show for them. The same director, Charles Nelson Riley, asked me to do the show in Chicago.
Is it kind of the process to bring the understudy in to do the show and then take him to open it on the road?
That has happened a number of times. It's somebody that they've always considered to do the role originally, which was for me, and they thought it's an easier transition because you know the show, you know the directors, and you've worked it, and it's an easy transition.
So Charles Nelson Riley was living out here, though.
Yes, he was. But then he
went
to New York. He went to New York, and then he went to Chicago and did an opening in Chicago.
And then did The Nerd go further, or was it just?
New York and Chicago.
Oh, it was New York. And
It's
what
been
was,
a lot of regional theaters too. I mean, it's a very, very, very funny play.
Is it funny? What's it about?
It's about a young man who's an architect who's trying to decide whether or not to get married, and he's dragging his feet, and he gets a visitor from somebody that he saved in Vietnam, who's a total nerd, and ends up moving in. And you find out at the end of the play that it's all been a ruse by the roommate to get him to marry this girl, to stay and marry. And but it's one of the best farces you'll ever see.
I was just going to say, it sounded like a heavy-duty farce.
Yeah,
and all the timing that has to go into that,
I have never
right?
seen, you've always heard people say, I laughed so hard I fell out of my seats. In Chicago, I observed people falling out of their seats. I have never seen that before, and I have to tell you, it was very gratifying.
I was going to say, that's the kind of theater person you want in your audience, right?
Right. It was very gratifying to see that.
So here you were in New York. You were a founding member of this company. You'd done Broadway.
Right.
You'd done all this. What brought you to Los Angeles?
Well, television and movies. I wanted to see that. I had while I was in New York, I had done a television movie called Women at West Point. And the producers of that show strongly encouraged that I come out here. They thought I'd find some good work out here. And so I did. I thought, well, I want to try this out. Texas was more, California is more like Texas in that respect, and I was going to get married, and I wanted to see about raising a family, and this was kind of a better fit for me.
This is a better place. Well, I was going to ask you about that because there's a lot of good theater in Texas.
There is.
Did you think of going there to work?
Well, I did do some theater. Well, when I was in high school in Texas, I started working there, Theater 3, which was and the Dallas Theater Center. I didn't ever get to work at the Theater Center, but at Theater 3, which was the equivalent of a good off-Broadway theater, a very good regional theater, I did do some shows there.
So you didn't want to go back there and stay, though. More
I
opportunities.
wanted to move out. I was ready to move out.
More opportunities. And one of those opportunities was another, at the Amundsen Theater. What was it? Another
Part of the Forest.
Another Part of the Forest. Did you act in it?
Yes, I did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, George Schaefer directed that. And
Lillian
Hellman was there. She came to the first week and a half's worth of rehearsals. It was kind of amazing to have her actually on the set. She...
Did he direct her before? Had he directed? Because he's a film director, wasn't he?
He's a film director also, but he came down to do that, and it was a really good production. But to have her there to observe everything and really give us insight into things.
Did she? Did she tell you
Yeah.
anything? That's because she wrote it, right?
Her big note, I must say, is she had said earlier on in the rehearsal, she says, "If I can't hear you, it's no good." And so we would start rehearsals, and she'd stand up and she'd go, "I can't hear you."
Was she deaf? Was she old by that time?
Well, she was old.
Pretty old.
She said, "I can't hear you," so we knew, okay, we better pick up the pace and pick up the volume.
That's great. Isn't that's pretty scary, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
I think so. But really teaches you something.
It does.
And I think that's why.
Well, the Amundsen, is a
big
It's
house.
a barn of a theater.
It's a big house.
It's a huge house. And
well,
so,
she could sit in the first row and say, "I can't hear you."
That's right.
Because the stage is so big.
That's right.
You also did a premiere of Baby Baths.
Yes,
What
Baby
was
with the
that?
Bathwater. Yeah, that was a Chris Durang play.
I shortened it, babies.
Oh, I see.
Don't throw the baby out with the tissue with the
That's
bathwater,
exactly
right?
where it's
Okay.
from.
All right.
Yeah, that was a Chris Durang play, which was another bizarre comedy sort of play. There's just so much in that play. I'm surprised that it's not done more often these days.
He's funny.
Yeah, he's very funny. Yeah, he's got a new play, I think, that's coming out soon or something. But he's a
good writer.
Terrific
Very good.
writer.
And is it easy to say those words, his words?
Yes, once there's a rhythm to them, and once you have them down, it all flows very. But initially, it's like, how does this fit in? Where does the story kind of go?
I always wonder how easy it is to say an author's words or a playwright's words for someone who's on the stage. Well, after you were here for a while, you got a Circle LA Drama Critics Circle Award for Best Supporting Actor.
Right, for the Hasty
in
Heart.
Hasty Heart. And who
Right.
was opposite you?
Gregory Harrison.
Oh, he was.
Right. Yeah. So that was a terrific show too. Martin Spear was the director of that, and we had a nice ensemble little cast. And it was the first show in the history of LA that went from a 99-seat theater. Actually, I think we only had 70 seats or something like that. And that show moved to the Amundsen Theater.
Oh, it did?
I did not go
But
with the
it
show
was
because
so...
I was in, at that time I was in another part of the forest at the same time, but business, they felt that they needed more stars, so they put Kurt Russell in my role.
That was great.
So,
that's who you look like.
There you go.
Kurt Russell looks like you. That's how I got the role.
There was some controversy over that. I mean, because the LA critics had awarded me Best Supporting Actor, and then they moved it and they replaced me. So it was
what is that? But that's what happens on Broadway, off Broadway too.
Sure.
A lot of times
Right.
it'll be successful, and then they want to do the play.
And the Broadway
with somebody.
stars don't get to do the movies, so it's
that's true too. They
it's
never
business.
get to do that.
It's business.
But you can sing.
Well,
Porgy
you're going
and
to talk about
Bess?
Porgy. I did not sing.
How could you be in the opera and not sing? Were you a supernumerary?
No, Porgy and Bess. Everybody sings in the show except the 4 white guys in the show. And I played the detective, which is, he's the heavy in the show because he arrests Porgy and he causes all kinds of problems like that. And he's the real heavy in the show. But he does not. They do not allow any of the white people to sing in the show.
I think that's fantastic. That's great. I love that. But now you're not even a part of the show at the Collector.
That's
You're
correct.
directing it. Tell us about that. It's the Ruskin Theater Group.
It's at the Ruskin Theater Group at the Santa Monica Airport.
And did you cast it?
I did cast it. It's a 2-character play. It's written by John Fowles. He wrote the novel back in the early 60s. It was then made into a movie in 1965 with Samantha Eggar and Terrence Stamp.
That's right.
And,
Terrence Stamp. You look
Terrence
like
Stamp.
Terrence Stamp, too.
Jeez, I should be working more. He was a beautiful man.
Wasn't he?
He was a totally beautiful man.
What a great actor, too. So it's a film.
Right.
It was first. It was a book.
First it was a book, then it was a film, and then John Fowles himself actually wrote a stage adaptation.
Oh, he did.
That was not well received. It opened and kind of closed very quickly, and this was in the late '60s. It didn't go anywhere, and then it kind of the film became kind of a cult. I mean, it was
Yes, it was.
It's a very iconic film. And people still talk about it. And then an actor by the name of Mark Healy, a British actor by the name of Mark Healy, did an adaptation of the show about, several years ago, that played in London and played all the provinces in London, played Canada a lot, and I believe has done one production in the States in Chicago, and that's the only place in the United States I think it's been done. I happened to come across it and fell in love with it.
Well, how'd you get Samantha Eggar to be in it when she was in the movie? Look at how many years later we're talking.
Well, Samantha came and saw the show. So she flipped for the show because she did not know that there was an adaptation of the show at all. She had not even heard of that. So she was so gracious when she came to see the show. It was a thrill for me to have this full circle sort of thing. And she talked about the filming process that they had done because when you read the book is written in 2 sections. It's the girl's story and the guy's story, and the play really focuses on his point of view. You had to choose one, more or less, so you lose a lot of her point of view. But even in the film, they did that, and Samantha was telling me that there's a whole section where there's a whole story about a love affair that she has with an older man. And they actually filmed all of that. They took weeks to film that, and then it never made the movie.
Because it was what he was talking about her.
Yeah.
He was collecting her, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So it was all, I can see what you're saying. So she didn't have any life to us.
Right.
And on the stage, does she have a life?
Yes, she does.
She does have a life.
So it's a very intense play, and we do it in a very small space on purpose. It's one of those things, you're in the room.
Oh, you're watching him.
Literally
I
with
mean,
him. You're not
you're
even
with him.
You are with him. You are not an observer. You are a participant in what's happening. What's happening to her is basically happening to everybody in that audience. So it's a back in the late 60s, I don't know if you remember Jerzy Grotowski,
yes.
when the Polish Laboratory Theater. When he came to New York and he brought his troupe over here, his whole idea was that the smaller the audience, the more intense the situation.
Oh.
He believed, that, it's like take the power of the sun and put it onto the pin of a needle, and the head of a needle. And when he opened up on Broadway, he only allowed 40 people into the show. So that for opening night was basically the critics.
That's right.
That's all that was in the room. But that was his whole thing. And we've kind of done that here. And people come out of there, it's very moving.
Very moved.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad you came to tell us about it.
Yes.
Thanks, Edward.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And don't go away. We'll be right back with Christie Mellor. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Our guest, author, actress, screenwriter, Christie Mellor, grew up in San Francisco but currently lives in Los Angeles. She's written The Three Martinis Playdate, The Three Martini Family Vacation, Raised by Wolves, and You Look Fine, Really. From the titles of the Three Martini books, it's pretty obvious that you have a husband and 2 children.
Oh, I do.
Tell us about those
Why?
books.
Because it sounds like I drink to avoid it. No. Well, those first books I wrote, well, I was sort of writing the trend of insane parenting, I guess, and I felt the need to address that. So I wrote The Three Martini Playdate, which proved to be a big hit because I think there were a lot of parents who were, trying to get off that hamster wheel.
It sounds like a movie. Like, let's all meet, our play date is over, or let's let the kids play and let's drink.
Well, no, it was really more of a metaphorical title. It's about relaxing and not centering your life around your child. Basically, having your wonderful children be a part of your life, but not running yourselves ragged.
And then your family vacation.
Sort of more of the same, a sequel.
It was a sequel.
Yeah.
And then, but Raised by Wolves.
Well, I call that book, that's my book for all the people who didn't read my first 2 books because their children grew up and went away to college and came back and still can't make their bed.
And they're still in.
or do the dishes.
But so you're indicting the parents on that one in a way. We didn't teach our kids the right thing.
Yeah, it's not about it's not just about teaching the kids. It's about doing too much for them, I think.
Oh, I think
so. The problem is the people, parents going overboard, trying to do everything for their children, thinking that they're doing their kids favors, but they're really not. They need to, give their kids more tools for independence, I think.
We preach to the choir, but the choir doesn't listen. We don't know. We should follow your directions, but it's very difficult, isn't it?
Well, it is, and we can't all be perfect because we're human and parents are human. So I tried to plant a seed, and people can think about things. And
before you were writing, before you wrote these 3 books, were you acting?
I was acting, and I still occasionally, do the occasional commercial or voiceover.
Did you take acting classes?
Well, for years, I was acting when I was about 12, 13 years old in San Francisco in the theater, but
you were,
and taking at the ACT Young Conservatory and in college, and when I came here, and I think I reached a certain age, I started doing more voiceover work when I had children, and as I grew up, I felt like there were other. I love acting. I can never say that I'm giving it up because it's one of those things that I think you always do. But I'm not currently working as an actress as much.
But as a writer and as an actress, I guess, and with your background, how do you get away with this sarcastic behavior?
Well, I think
socially, do you talk like that? Like you do in your
I'm really
book?
not that sarcastic. I mean, I think that you can get away with maybe sort of being opinionated and bossy. When you, like in a lot of the experiences that I've had in all my books, I think some of the advice that I have comes out of my own failings and and making my own mistakes. So.
Well, I am talking about this. You look fine, really. I mean, that you're just putting this person on. That's the kind of sarcastic that I'm talking about.
I'm being very positive.
You are being positive.
I am, because I think that, again, as in the 3 Martini Playdate, I think people have gone completely overboard in this pursuit of some kind of weird perfection.
I agree.
That they're using odd fillers and in their face and shooting botulism into their forehead, and I think that, I think it should stop, and I just am trying to encourage.
I see. I thought it was totally sarcastic. But the other thing is, you go to your friends for advice and critique, so that you're getting this other input. Are you writing it in, or are you actually going to them?
Well,
are you writing characters in, or do you actually have those name friends that you talk about?
Well, when I discuss my friends as an inspiration, I mean, I really, I've been inspired by different women throughout my life, and so I write about them, as friends.
They are your real friends.
They are my real friends. Yes, I didn't have that Maria does blah blah. No, I really, they are my real friends, and I use their real names.
Could you turn this into a screenplay?
Well, I don't know. 3 Martini Playdate was a pilot for HBO a couple of years ago, but it never got made. It was optioned, and then there was sort of a changing of the guard over there, so it didn't happen. But you never know, because that was a completely non-linear non-narrative kind of book.
Could you write a screenplay? Have you ever written a screenplay?
I have written a few, yes. Nothing that was ever gotten made, but.
But this had all the kind of feelings to it, or maybe a series.
Yeah, I mean, but again, it's, right now it's a book.
My book.
It's my book, and I love my book, and it's very, I hope that women will be inspired by it. And
how old should your reader be? What do you think?
I'm thinking, women over 40, but it could easily be. I think everyone's thinking about aging and beauty, and right. Unless you're in your 20s, probably, then they can read Raised by Wolves. When they get older, they can read this one.
That's right. That's exactly right. But you give all this advice, this personal grooming advice. What do you say? Let's talk about some of the things, because you talk about sagging neck and personal grooming. Let's start on that.
Well, let me see. I might need my book to refer to some of the things, but I have some real advice, and then I have some advice that you can take with a grain of salt. But I also give some very useful, like the neck exercises.
Yes, what is the sagging neck you talk
they're really
about?
Embarrassing to actually do, and I don't know whether I should do them on camera.
Out, you
said? You do sort of this, oh God, am I really going to do it? I'm going to do it. Okay,
okay.
Here we go. You go like that.
Oh, I see.
And it's the alien. I call it the alien.
But you need to see someone do it, because I was reading it and I wasn't doing it right.
Well, actually, if you read it, it just follow the instructions exactly. It's you sort of lift your head up, put your chin, thrust your chin forward as if you are an alien, and then you kind of move your jaw.
Do you think it works?
I don't know. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but this came from a makeup artist named Dallas Hartnett.
But the other thing is the perfect red lipstick. Why that?
Well, I think I think women get scared of red lipstick, and someone has told them at some point that, you can't wear red lipstick over a certain age because it'll age you, or
that's
whatever.
True.
And I just think that as we get older, we should become maybe more daring and more adventurous instead of less.
That's true. I never thought about that. They say red just brings all the wrinkles out, and it makes you look really horrible. Okay. And it doesn't, because you love red lipstick.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
The other thing, make your own perfume? Come on.
Oh, well, I have I have a whole survival guide for if an asteroid should hit the Earth and you cannot get to Barney's. So I have recipes in there for making your own scrubs and your own.
Tell us about the beauty scrub.
Well, there's oatmeal scrub. Everybody knows about these things.
Right.
But to actually do them, I mean, you can put sugar and a little olive oil in the palm of your hand, or salt, and scrub it on your face.
That's what you said.
It's so good. I use raw honey on my face a lot. It's a natural humectant. It's also a natural antibacterial. They use it for wound care.
Right.
In the war they
The
did that.
honey, I forgot about the honey.
Raw honey, and it lasts forever in a cupboard for 2 years or something, and
it washes down the drain.
Washes
easily.
down the drain. It's wonderful, and
so how do you make your own perfume? You were
well,
doing.
There's
what?
a long recipe in there, but it involves, you can use vodka as a base, so that's easy enough.
Okay,
Everyone's
right.
got that lying around the house.
But you and what?
Use
Peel.
lemon
peeling?
peel. This was a tribute to my old friend Andy Reinhardt, because he and I used to make perfume together when we were children, and
So great.
so I kind of perfected the recipe, because ours involved a lot of seeds and lemon juice.
You have recipes for food? So
I always have recipes. Every book I've written, I put in recipes.
Is that
for
right?
food, yes. And in this case, one of my favorite sections is the section on book group, which I
read that.
Yeah, and I sort of give, I hope, some inspiration to people who might have their own book groups. And
So it's what to cook when you go to your book group.
yes, or well, because oftentimes
Right.
you have your friends over and you alternate houses and you
Right,
cook.
exactly.
So I used to kind of go a little overboard and have kind of book themed
Food.
dinners. And
But that also goes into the other thing that you talked about, how to give a party.
Yeah.
Because those two work together, right?
yes, they do. And don't be afraid of making a proper cocktail and having a real party and dressing up, because people
okay,
forget
dressing
to
up
dress up.
Gets to the chapter on gloves.
Yeah, well,
and-
gloves and parasols, because sunscreen is really important.
Yeah,
If you
and
want to.
that-
I'm 80, okay? I just want to
And
say
look
that
how
right
good you
now. I
look.
don't often tell my age.
But also gloves and parasols, and it was part of the etiquette, which people don't have etiquette.
And I mean, I think the basic thing in all my books, I think that's the theme running through all of my books, is just that basic manners are really just about how we treat each other, and making sure that you make the other person more comfortable and treat people nicely, and it's not as much to do with, using the proper fork, but how
But
you
that
behave.
can start coming to light too, using a fork. Let's see, what else did you talk about? The emergency kit.
Oh, well, that's part of my survival chapter, yes, because
Needles.
I think women need to know how to build a fire,
Oh, yeah.
have a little emergency kit in your car.
Right.
Do you know how to build a fire, by the way?
No.
It's a very important thing. You think you don't know how to build a fire.
glass?
Well,
Babe, can you use your eyeglasses?
I really don't get into that much of a survival thing. I actually, you do need matches to light
Okay.
it. But I'm talking about how to build a fire.
Oh,
Because you never know when you might need to
No, what did
roast
you
some
do?
marshmallows or something.
start with small things first and go up?
Yeah, you've got it. It must be your natural instinct.
Okay, so you also had in your survival kit needles with black thread.
Well, it's an Altoid survival kit.
Oh, this is a little
It's everything
teeny
that you
one.
can get in an Altoid box, which it can be done. You just have to use the small size cotton balls and everything rolled very
Band-Aids.
tightly and banded. Yeah, but
Okay.
it's
All right, we
some,
have
some of those things you can take with a grain of salt.
You're 40 and fabulous, we know, because that's what this is all about. And before we get out of here, you give us a prescription for getting out of the house in 5 minutes.
Oh,
So
well,
you've got to do that in 5 seconds.
okay, well, that's easy. First of all, get yourself dressed, run a washcloth over your face and your skin cream, but don't put too much. If you have to get out of the house really quickly, just, dab it around your eyes and like this. You get one of those Bobbi Brown or one of those foundation sticks. Instead of thinking that you have to put foundation over your entire face, you just want to do a little around your nose and your mouth and maybe your, jawline to
Where
spread
you
it
have
up.
a Botox.
And, and red lipstick. If nothing else, you have red lipstick, you have eyebrows, you can leave and
then
be
what do you
good for the
throw
day.
on?
Well, a shawl is helpful if you are in something that looks like it might be mistaken for pajamas, and you need to go somewhere and show.
right.
So a lovely wrap, your lovely wrap and your red lipstick, and you're good to go for the day.
I'm so glad you came, Christie. It was more fun. Now I have to go back and read the book again because it's
Oh, I
more
hope
fun
so.
having you tell us about it.
Well, you look fabulous, by the way, and this is one of what I'm talking. Part
Well,
of the thing
I'm
I'm talking.
82.
See, there you go. But one of the things I talk about on my book is how we need to embrace our wonderful selves as we get older and dress it up, and it doesn't. And if you're happy and having a happy life, it's going to show in your face.
So we'll do it together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
And keep writing to me. Please email at jaquinn1@aol.com. and tell us how great we look for over 80. Or keep writing to 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles 90017. See you next time.